Akwaba, welcome back. Finally, the conversation on liberation Pan-Africanists would not be complete without discussing the role and influence, as well as the power of Black women. Dr. Keisha Blaine, a scholar in the Department of Africana Studies at the University of Pennsylvania and an associate professor of history at the University of Iowa, explains, and I quote, "Despite their marginalization in the literature, Black women played and continue to play central roles in shaping Pan-Africanist movements and discourses. They not only established and led an array of Pan-Africanist organizations, but they used their writings and speeches to challenge the masculinity framing of Pan-Africanism, calling instead for the inclusion of women's voices and concerns," end quote. The author of Black Nationalist Women and the Global Struggle for Freedom, Blaine notes that while women played critical roles in various manifestations of Pan-Africanism, their contributions were not generally acknowledged in the literature, and part of her mission in writing the book was to highlight those omissions and complete the story. As a Pan-Africanist educator, I couldn't agree with her more. In my adult community education program, Ashe University, I have made a point in highlighting women like the mother of the reparations movement, Callie House, anti-lynching crusader and educator and journalist Ida B. Wells Barnett, former Garveyite Mittie Maud Lena Gordon, founder of the 300,000-member Peace Movement of Ethiopia, and Claudia Jones, a political activist, Black nationalist, and journalist who co-founded the first major Black newspaper in England, the West Indian Gazette, along with fellow activist Amy Ashwood Garvey. While I will have to do a future episode dedicated to the unsung women of global liberation movements, I will spend our remaining time on Queen Mother Audley Moore. Born in 1898, Audley Moore was bestowed the honorific of Queen Mother by the Ashanti people of Ghana in 1972. She counted a number of iconic activists as personal friends, including Marcus Garvey, Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela, and Rosa Parks. Self-educated and inspired by the writings of Frederick Douglass and the speeches of Garvey, Moore relocated to Harlem from her birthplace of Louisiana and became a member and then trusted leader and organizer in the Garvey movement. She worked in planning and execution of UNIA conferences and was a shareholder in Garvey's Black Star Line shipping company. Upon Garvey's imprisonment and exile, Moore worked on both international and local levels. She founded the Universal Association of Ethiopian Women, the Committee for Reparations for the Descendants of U.S. Slaves, and was a founding member of the Republic of New Africa. Moore's activism in fighting for self-determination, land, and reparations resulted in her 1957 and 1959 petition presentations to the United Nations for self-determination. In noting the genocide of enslavement, she boldly asked for reparations to include land and $200 billion as compensation for unpaid labor, picking up where Callie House left off. Moore once said, and I quote, "They are not only calling us Negroes, they made us Negroes. Negroes are things that don't know where they came from and don't even care that they don't know. Negro is a state of mind, and they massacred our minds," end quote. Well, outraged by our suffering, Queen Mother Moore lived her life engaged in political activism and was deeply admired and financially cared for in her elder years by a number of prominent New York politicians, Congressman Charles Rangel, Mayor David Dinkins, and political activist Jesse Jackson, among them. Queen Mother Moore transitioned in 1997 at the age of 98, leaving a legacy of action. As the work of liberation continues, whether through individual activism or organizations dedicated to improving our condition worldwide, it behooves us to recall the words of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I quote, "All people of African descent, whether they live in North or South America, the Caribbean, or in any part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation," end quote. We are a connected people, a global people. Our struggle to be fully human in the world is also a global struggle requiring intentional action. To that end, visionary, educated, and courageous individuals dare to strategize as Pan-Africanists for our global liberation. As I close this double episode on Liberation Pan-Africanists, let me provide a poetic lesson. Then, as well as now, the imperialists of the world seek to protect their global interests and power economically, politically, and socially, keeping us from unification, upholding white supremacy. Then, as well as now, their deepest fear is the coalescing of Black people. Global Black unity is the greatest fear and threat to white supremacy in the diaspora and the motherland. The freedom fighters and Liberation Pan-Africanists were all about the work. They spoke, taught, and lived sacrificially in service to Black people, us, and their examples of action and legacies of service will live or die in us. Say their names: Amilcar Cabral, Thomas Sankara, Michere Mugo, Marcus Garvey, Paulu Camaracafego, Walter Rodney, Queen Mother Moore, and countless others, known and unknown. They lived the inside work for the next level of outside change loudly, unapologetically, courageously bold and fierce, and we must do no less. Or to quote the last line in the closing statement of the 1969 Black Power Conference in Bermuda, we must be about the work. Yes, we must. Hotep. I am M. Wally Moon Melody Michere Van Putten, and I am dropping the knowledge. Ashe.
Truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, reciprocity. 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 Justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, reciprocity. Truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, reciprocity.